To another edition of Vikings Spin. I'm your host Jason, and we are coming at you today with a free agency podcast here as Vikings GM Rick Spielman and head coach Mike Zimmer are attending the second day of the NFL Combine today. So this is where you're actually going to see some of the players get into drills, and I know the offensive linemen are among that group, so I'm sure Vikings fans will be watching that closely. But we're going to talk about free agency today because today is really a good day to talk about it because the rumors are starting to pop up on free agents, both internal and external free agents, for teams, potential release candidates, people who are being released as we speak. Restructured candidates, potential trades, all that stuff is coming up. So we're going to tackle this piece by piece. We're going to start with the trade rumors. There was a trade rumor that popped up last night from CBS Sports that the Vikings are shopping cornerback Trey Waynes. I certainly think that this is a possibility. You have to look at it where the Vikings have both Xavier Rhodes and Trey Waynes making top-tier cornerback money right now. Waynes is cutting $9.1 million against the cap this year if he's on the roster. So his contract expires at the end of this season. If he were to walk away, the Vikings would get a 2021 third-round compensatory pick if they just let him walk in free agency after the season. So they may be looking to see if they can do better than that. It would be tough to pay both Rhodes and Waynes long term. So this is why they are probably looking at something like this. Could you get a second round pick for him? Possibly. There's some cornerback hungry teams out there like the Raiders, the Colts, the Chiefs, the Steelers. So this is the type of thing that could be. That could actually come to fruition. I could actually see it because the Vikings definitely need cap space. They only have $7.2 million in cap space right now, and that's not going to cut it when it comes to re-signings and external free agent targets to try to fill their needs before going into the draft. So let's talk about those internal free agents that they would have to re-sign. We'll start with the cheaper ones first. Exclusive rights free agents. Vikings probably want out of that group. You got C.J. Ham, Matt Wiley, Cedric Lang, and Josiah Price. I would say the Vikings are probably going to look at bring back C.J. Ham. He was effective last year in the fullback role, and with Gary Kubiak and Rick Dennison on board here, and Kevin Stefanski, they're going to definitely use the fullback in this offense. So Ham will definitely be able to come back. It will only cost him $645K against the cap. Matt Wiley, I wouldn't guarantee that he'll be back with a new special teams coach. And it was said that he struggled as a holder last year because he didn't have any experience holding. And that might have given the kickers some problems last year. So, I'd say that they might let him walk. The other two guys are practice squad type players who might be brought back to compete, but neither one of them would be a lock to make the roster. Moving on to restricted free agents, Anthony Harris. I think that's definitely someone the Vikings want back. Anthony Harris took over for an injured Andrew Sendejo last year. Had the best year of his career, was one of the highest rated safeties in the league, and is a young player and ascending. I think the Vikings will, at minimum, give him the restricted free agent tender, whether that's a first-round tender or a second-round tender, to make sure they hang on to him. Or, they might just go ahead and sign him for 4 years. That's probably what I would do, while the price is still relatively low, to try to give him a long-term contract here to be the strong safety here for a while. Rashad Hill is another restricted free agent. He's a swing tackle. I don't know if he's really going to be a scheme fit with Kubiak and Dennison coming in, wanting to do more zone blocking. So I don't think they'll bring him back. That's my opinion. But if they did, they can get him back on a second round tender for about $3.1 million, if that's what they want to do. We're moving on to the unrestricted free agents. Mike Zimmer touched on the big two today as far as Vikings free agents, Anthony Barr and Sheldon Richardson. He acknowledged the Vikings may not have the cap space to bring them back. They probably have a set price for those two. He said they'll bring him back if they can, but if they can't agree on a price, then they will both walk. So my guess is that they walk. I think the Vikings are going to try to upgrade on offense and rely on Coach Zimmer to coach up some young defensive talent, which is abundant in the upcoming draft in the first 3 rounds. So I definitely do expect a defensive player to be added that way. You could also see free agent come in. In the case of Sheldon Richardson, they could re-sign Tom Johnson, who's very effective as an interior pass rusher, and is going to be a whole lot cheaper than Sheldon Richardson. I think that's the way they're going to go. I do see Tom Johnson getting re-signed and Richardson probably walking. I think they'd like to bring back Barr, but it'll all depend on the price. Latavius Murray. We all know that Latavius Murray said he wanted to be a featured back, but then also said that he wants to come back and compete as a member of the Vikings. My take on Latavius Murray is he's going to go out in the market. He's going to find that he's not going to be a starting running back, and he could ultimately wind up back with the Vikings. That's not a lock, but I certainly think that's a possibility. I think the Vikings will show some interest in him and leave an offer on the table, and then see what Murray does with that by the end of free agency. I don't think he'll sign with anyone until after the draft. That's my take on that. We'll see if that comes true. Then if they don't, there's other options in free agency, and there's probably some day 3 running backs that they could use to replace him if they want to go with a rookie. Moving on here, Aldrick Robinson. He could probably be had for cheap. I think the Vikings would be interested in him. He has good chemistry with Kirk Cousins. He is a good deep speed type of guy. Had 5 touchdowns last season in limited action as a wide receiver 4. I think the Vikings like him to have him back as a wide receiver 4. So I think that's going to get done for relatively cheap. Somewhere between $1 and $2 million probably would take to re-sign him. I don't see Georgia Iloka or Amir Abdullah back. Also don't see Brett Jones coming back after the Vikings kind of did him dirty last year. Tom Compton, I doubt they'd have any interest in re-signing him. But they definitely could have interest in bringing back Marcus Sherrills. He's a reliable punt returner. Every year they say that, people speculate that Sherrills isn't going to come back, and he winds up coming back anyway. I don't see why not. Probably won't take more than $1 million to re-sign him. Dan Bailey is probably being evaluated by the special teams coordinator, Marwan Malouf. Maybe with a better holder and another year removed from injury, Bailey could sharpen up. He definitely had a down year last year, but I think the potential is still there. He's got a strong leg. He's been historically accurate. The Vikings may bring in a kicking specialist coach and try to get him back to form. We'll see. That's really 50-50. Could go either way. As far as internally restructure candidates, I've been listening to Rick Spielman talk, and he did mention that longtime Vikings, they might have to make some hard decisions there. Now, you could be thinking about Kyle Rudolph, you could be thinking about Everson Griffin, when he's talking about longtime Vikings, who they like as people, who've done a lot for the team and the community over the years. I'm sure that they're trying to get contract restructures. There could be releases. My guess is they're going to wind up restructuring Everson Griffin. And I think probably just with a brand new type of deal, not something where they just simply convert the base salary to signing bonus. Maybe just give them like a new signing bonus and get that cap number down over the next 3 years. We'll see if he'd agree to something like that. You know, he did have the mental health issues last year that cost him some time, but I think he's headed in the right direction. He's got a good support system here in Minnesota to help with that. So I'm hoping that gets done. And I think Everson, if he doesn't spend time away from the team, he'll be more in playing shape. Still had a decent season for playing the short amount of time that he did play, but I think he'd probably be a step faster if he keeps his body in playing shape. I think Linval Joseph is a candidate for restructure now at 30 years old, coming off of a little bit of a down year. I think they're going to start to spell him a little bit more as he gets up there in age, but he's still very effective nose tackle. I don't think he's going anywhere, but I think they may approach him about a restructure. If I had to predict releases, I would definitely say that Mike Remmers is going to be gone, and Andrew Sendejo, they're just going to decline the option. Right there, that's $10 million savings between those two in cap space. Kyle Rudolph at $7.6 million with zero dead money if released could be a candidate for release, trade, or restructure. You know, I think the Vikings might want to get a tight end with better run blocking ability and more ability to stretch the field than they have with him right now. The Vikings could move on from Laquan Treadwell. You know, I know at the presser, Zimmer said that Kubiak has a plan for him. You know, we'll see if that's just coach speak to try to make other teams think that the Vikings want to keep him, so that they might get something for him in a trade. You know, a lot of these things that are said, take them with a grain of salt. There could be some nuggets of truth in there, but there's definitely, you know, some double talk and coach speak in there as well when you listen to these press conferences. Some external free agent targets that the Vikings might look at for offensive line. A new one, the pool just got a little deeper as Josh Sitton was told that he will not be, that he will be released by the Dolphins. Sitton in 2017 was the best pass blocking guard in the league. We also remember him from his Green Bay Packer days, so he's been a good offensive lineman. Definitely would be an upgrade for the Vikings at guard. He was out last year with a torn rotator cuff, but if his medicals check out, he could definitely be someone that the Vikings look at in free agency. He could be less expensive than Matt Paradis or Roger Saffold or even Ramon Foster. But speaking of those guys, I'm sure that there'll be targets as well. Matt Paradis, of course, with his history with the Broncos, and Gary Kubiak and Rick Dennison could definitely be a free agent target. There were whispers by a Denver media guy that the Vikings were interested in Broncos lineman Billy Turner. I think that's just speculation. But, you know, Turner, while he's not a starting material, could be reasonable depth. He's been an okay player at right tackle and guard, bad player at left tackle, but not a starter. Definitely would be a depth piece if they were to consider bringing him in. You never know if they might look at Jawan James. He's going to hit free agency most likely. He's a right tackle, former first-round pick of the Dolphins, has played fairly well, but he didn't get a long-term deal over there. He could be someone the Vikings look at. I think wide receiver 3, some names to watch, I think, are John Smokey Brown of the Ravens. If Deshaun Jackson gets released from Tampa Bay, Dante Moncrief, Pierre Garcon, he's already been released by the 49ers. He's got history with Cousins just like Deshaun Jackson does. So those would be some guys to watch. Defensive tackle, like I mentioned, Vikings probably need to spell Linval Joseph more at nose tackle. Depending on what they want to do with Jaleel Johnson, if they're going to use Jaleel Johnson as a run-stuffing 3-tech. They could look at bringing in somebody like Pico, who was told that he won't be back with the Broncos. Pico's got history with Mike Zimmer at nose tackle, and he can be somebody to come in for relatively cheap to give Linval Joseph a rest from time to time. Use him on the goal line packages next to Linval. Haloti Ngata is another player like that the Vikings could be looking at. We're going to see some more guys that are going to be cap casualties getting released soon. The nice thing about signing a player that's been released is they don't count against the comp pick formula. So the compensatory pick formula, if the Vikings do let Anthony Barr and Sheldon Richardson go, those are 2 third-round compensatory picks. And let's say the Vikings sign a couple free agents this offseason, but they were free agents that were released. Even if these guys are starters, they won't cancel out those third-round compensatory picks that the Vikings would get for Anthony Barr and Sheldon Richardson when they sign elsewhere. There's also a possibility for a compensatory pick with Andrew Sendejo because he's not actually going to be a release. They're just going to decline his option, most likely, in my opinion. So if they do that, he would actually net them a comp pick as well. So it'd be interesting to see what kind of comp pick that would be because Sendejo is probably still a starter in the league if he signs elsewhere. So that could be relatively high, maybe a 5th-round compensatory pick could be in the works on that one. So we'll see what happens. Wanted to touch base today on free agency and some of the trade rumors. Definitely encourage you guys to go and listen to Rick Spielman and Mike Zimmer's press conferences on Vikings.com. Don't forget to follow us on Viking Spin on Twitter and Facebook. Encourage others to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And I thank you guys so much for tuning in today for another edition of Viking Spin. And we'll see you next time. Take care.